We good? We're already live, so we're okay. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, and this is the regular meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is going to be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join us. Next, we will be taking a moment of silent reflection. We ask that during this time, we've had a few staff members that have had some tragic things that have happened very recently. And so we ask that you keep those staff members in your hearts and just wish them well as they navigate these tragic things that are going on. Next, we will be taking a moment of silent reflection. We ask that during this time, we've had a few staff members that have had some tragic things that have happened very recently. And so we ask that you keep those staff members in your hearts and just wish them well as they navigate these tragic things that are going on. Okay, next we are going to move on to recognitions and celebrations, and this is going to be led by Executive Director Nawanis.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Davidson and fellow cabinet members and guests, both present and online. It is a privilege to stand before you tonight to celebrate some truly exceptional achievements by our Litchfield learners. Litchfield Elementary School District takes great pride in providing every student with the best academic experience possible, and tonight we are thrilled to recognize a group of students who exemplify excellence in learning. These students achieved remarkable success on the AASA testing, demonstrating their hard work and dedication. Please hold your applause until we get to the end, but please join me in congratulating the following students for their outstanding performance. Nathaniel Randolph, 5th grade, Barbara Roby Elementary. William Peacock, 5th grade, Belen Soto Elementary. Conley Eichelberger, 5th grade, Corte Sierra Elementary. Hadassah Foyin Adaniyi, 5th grader, Corte Sierra Elementary. Hoffman, 5th grade, Mabel Pageant Elementary. Elijah Pittman, 4th grade, Verado Elementary. Lauren Igwe, 8th grade, Western Sky Middle School. And Hannah Zelensky, 6th grade, Wigwam Middle School. Now, Hannah had high scores both not only on the AASA, but also on the AZ Science testing. Each of these students has shown exceptional commitment to their studies and set a standard for academic excellence within our district. Their success is a testament not only to their efforts, but to the dedication of their families, their teachers, and the entire school community. We are incredibly proud of what they have accomplished, and we know their futures will be bright. These high achievers represent the best of LESD 7-9, and we are excited to see the positive impact that they will continue to make both academically and beyond. So join me in congratulating these students, and thank you for your hard work, and thank you for your dedication. All are a true inspiration to all of us. Right. If I could have the students join me up here so we could take a picture with Dr. Davidson. Thank you for your dedication. All are a true inspiration to all of us. Hey, Sam. If you want to. Yeah, we'll look at that. Principals, I can have the student. Here's another secondary picture as well. Yeah, we're gonna get one with them and then we'll get one with the principals. Hey, remember, can't see camera, can't see you. All right, here we go. Smile, right in the way. Oh, look at all the beautiful smile. All right, thank you. Just as a quick reminder, this is just the beginning of many celebrations of student achievement. We will be recognizing greatest growth and other great achievements that our students have achieved through the year. So this is just the beginning of many great celebrations we will have.
Can I make a request? Can you read each name again and have each kid stand just so we
You
can
can recognize them?
see who they are?
Okay. Ready? Here we go. Nathaniel Randolph. All right. William Peacock. Conley Eichelberger. Hadassah Foyin Adanigi. Leo Hoffman. Elijah Pittman. Okay. Lauren Igwe. And Hannah Zelinsky. Thank you. You guys are truly an inspiration. Thank you very much. Lauren Igwe.
Those are my favorite celebrations. So thank you for bringing these students here. And you guys are amazing. Thank you for showing what the brightest of our students look like. We appreciate all the hard work that you're putting in, the hard work your parents are putting into making sure that you're studying when you might not want to and doing all your schoolwork. And thank you to the teachers for pouring into them every day so that they can be academically successful. Okay, we are going to move on to the next item. We have no public request to speak, so we'll move on from that. The next is going to be the adoption of the agenda and approval of consent agenda. I'll go through and see if there's anything that anyone would like to pull from our consent agenda. I will start by pulling 6.4 certified personnel employment position change with new contract with salary exception. Ms. Wallace, did you have anything you wish to pull from the agenda?
No, thank you.
Owens?
No, thank you.
Emmer?
No, thank you.
Ms. Moran?
No, thank you.
Okay, since just 6.4, someone would make a motion to approve minus that.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus item 6.4.
I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. We will now move on to what is now going to be 7.1, which will be certified personnel employment position changes with new contract and salary exception. I asked to pull this because there's a transfer on our agenda of somebody transferring from an 8th grade teaching position to an instructional coach position. And I just wanted us to discuss that for a moment because we know that filling middle school teacher positions is extremely difficult. I am a parent of a kid that had to have multiple teachers throughout the school year, and I know what a challenge that is. And so I already was concerned, and then we've gotten a lot of community feedback about that change very recently. So I thought at least it warranted a discussion about that and why that decision was made. And is there something else we can do in the future to not have it be like that? So. And I know what a challenge that is.
President's item and members of the board, thank you for raising the concern, and to our families out there as well. Again, we're always glad to hear from you, good or bad. So we appreciate you reaching out to our board and to our staff. This situation, certainly one that we love to talk about. We're always looking for ways to provide opportunities for promotion for our team. But I would also add, we have to do that in a manner that protects our students and gives them the best chance in regards to their learning. So this particular situation is one that I know Ms. Satterfield will weigh in on as we talk about the transfer process. It's one that we want to continue to build parameters around and to revisit our policy and our practice in regards to staff member transfers. So please note that, governing board. But I know we were able to communicate out that this particular situation is on hold. And for those that do come up or maybe get to this point in time during the instructional period, our school year, we do want to be very mindful of moving staff at any given time to, again, honor that learning that needs to take place in our classrooms. So I'll let Ms. Satterfield weigh in a little bit on what HR is examining and what they hope to provide to our board in the near future.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Davidson and my colleagues and members of the community. Closer to my mouth. All right. I apologize. I always think that I speak loudly, so I'm worried about being too loud. So today we worked, been to the campus, met with the teacher who is interested in advancing, talked with her, and it was very refreshing because her greatest concern in the whole process was for her children. And but beyond that, it is one more reason why we want to look at and examine the transfer policy. So I've been doing some looking, and Brian and I both have been reviewing the policy. We find that we have a policy, but we don't have a regulation that is what tells us how do we enact that policy. So that will be a project that we will be working on and then bring forward for your consideration. We hope to do that sooner rather than later. And as I looked at other district policies about this, I see that there are several things that we need to address, even down to the moving time that we provide for teachers, whether we ask them to move or they choose to move. So I think that this is founded in having a good, solid transfer policy with clear parameters that spell out how this takes place, because we cannot interrupt the instruction of students. And the good news is that we do have 2 math teachers that we have been preparing, and they've been preparing in junior high math. We will have a follow-up visit with the University of Arizona Friday of this week, where we will be updated on their progress and how close they are to being prepared to step into a classroom. Because with them also, we want to set them up for success. We don't want to set them up for failure. So we want to make sure they're ready and can deliver that high quality instruction to our students. I think that today was a great learning opportunity to have a chance to go out to the schools, to work with 2 principals, and to also work with the employee, and hopefully support that individual in feeling valued, so that we can retain her. She is a new individual to our district. And so I think we're on the road to where we need to be, but we need to have those pieces in place so that we don't jeopardize children in the middle of the school year or once school has begun.
Okay, so to make sure that I understand, we do not need to approve that specific item on that agenda because that is on hold for now. And it may come back to us later, but tonight we could approve the rest of it minus the transfer.
Yes, ma'am. So she is going to remain in the classroom, and we are going to, plan how she will transition. When there are opportunities, like this Friday is a training opportunity for her. We already had a substitute that she had secured, so she's going to attend that training. So she will be getting prepared for her new role, but not leaving her students as yet.
Okay. Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions or comments regarding this item?
No, I appreciate the feedback. I agree with what Melissa was saying, that it is very disruptive to students in the middle of the year. But at the same time, I also highly support promoting from within and allowing people to advance in their career. So I don't want to hold her back from her aspirations either. She's obviously a wonderful teacher, because so many people wouldn't be asking to keep her in the classroom if she wasn't fantastic. So I'm glad that she's a great teacher, but we do need to make sure we're doing what's best for kids and not putting substitutes in there or splitting them up amongst other teachers.
Thank you. And I was glad that we were able to work that out too, and how supportive she was as an individual about the kids and the importance of staying with the kids while we make this transition, helping to fulfill her goals so that we can retain her for our team. So I think it was as good of an outcome as we could have had today.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions or comments on this item?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions or comments on this item?
I'm not sure I have any questions, but I do have a few comments. Thank you very much for the explanation, and that I think this highlights for us, but also for parents that have been part of this process, how important policy is. I think a lot of people think that's kind of the boring part of the job, but the district was following the current policy, and even following the current policy led us down a path that I think we can agree wasn't what was best for kids. It wasn't designed that way. That just happened to be in this process what wound up happening. So I think making sure our policies are as concise as we can make them, but also having regulations so that we can pinpoint certain areas when things like this happen is extremely important. So I'm supportive of your team working through what that policy and regulation should be, bringing it back and making sure that we don't have any gray areas as this one has presented. I think there is actually precedent for this at the board. Unfortunately, I don't think most of our cabinet was here at that time because it was a couple of years back. We made the same decision when a principal was being transferred in the middle of the year. To Michelle's point, we don't want to hold anyone back from career advancement at all, especially when it's within our own district. But removing someone from a campus in the middle of the year, even at that time 2 years ago, was not something the board thought was okay, and something that we asked, absolutely, this is a great transfer. Can you hold until, the end of the semester? That was a short period of time at that time. And so I think there is precedent here, at least, that we have agreed on that in the past to make that decision. The third thing is, I think when we bring this back, in terms of, as you just mentioned, we'll bring it back for when the transfer actually goes through. I'd like to know what suitable replacement means. I think you need to work with campus administration, to make sure that there is a suitable replacement. We all know how difficult middle school teachers can be to find. And I know we have some student teachers available and things like that. Just making sure 8th grade math is critical. Like, we have heard you guys tell us this, and we listen and we see the statistics. And when we are less than 40% proficiency in math, suitable takes on a whole nother, importance to me. So I think what would be suitable in another situation might be different in this math class, because we've heard how important it is and how crucial it is to prepare kids for high school. That's what we're trying to do. So I'd like to know what those replacement plans are, obviously, when they come back. And just a big thank you to everyone involved, the teacher, obviously, as well as the administration, everyone, for really stopping in the middle of this process and asking what's best for kids. We do that at most times, and sometimes we just get busy with our process and our policy and moving on. And I think in this case, I'm really glad that someone sort of asked us to take a reflection point and make sure that we were doing what's best for kids. And as always, you did. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Ms. Moran?
I do have a couple of questions. One is just trying to find out kind of how we got here. So at Wigwam Creek, and I probably should know this, but at Wigwam Creek, did we start the year without an instructional coach, or did we move that instructional coach, or did that person resign?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sorry.
The instructional coach resigned. I believe it was in June, and we have to take responsibility. We didn't get the position posted as quick as we should have. And so I think that contributed to the circumstances, and, and in that opportunity to find that quality candidate to support at the school where we need the coach. But that's what happened, was the resignation was in June, and then with the posting and the turnaround time for interviews, it delayed the process.
Okay, so under the current policy, are there any restrictions for current employees applying to other positions in the district? Obviously, we have zero control over if someone applies for something outside the district and decides to resign. So what do we currently have in place? What would that look like? Does an employee talk to their principal or, whoever they report to? Do they know about that in advance? Is it something that only if they were offered the job, then they would discuss that? Tell me more about that process.
I honestly feel that before I respond fully, I would like to look a little bit more into the policies to make sure that when we bring something forward to you, it is really in the best interest of our students. I think we need to look at being more detailed, not only about our own employees and their desire for advancement and growth, but we need to have parameters in place when folks can ask to transfer or request to transfer. And so I feel that I need to do a little bit more research and comparison before I present what I would call a solid answer. But I do think we need more parameters around it. We want to encourage our folks because we want to retain them, but we want to do so also keeping in mind that we have to look out for our students first.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is these gaps, we don't have direct guidance on what that would look like if a current contracted employee wants to transfer to a different position in the district in the current school year. So that's what we're looking to fill in with these additional regulations are what is the chain of command? What would that look like?
So what I understand, what I've learned has been the practice in Litchfield is that when a person is pursuing an advancement opportunity, that we have done our best to work that out. And I think that what I understand is that we've done that in the way we're describing, and what we're doing now is where we are making sure that we have a qualified replacement and we're not putting the children through this sub and that sub, and then yet the adjustment to a new full-time teacher. So I hope that those will be things that we will be able to delineate in the not in the policy, but in the regulations, so that we specifically know, okay, if we have to ask someone to take an involuntary transfer because of our staffing ratios, that we have a plan in place that we say, okay, we talk to them and here's what has to happen. And here's how we'll support you with the move. So people should get to know that before those things happen in that case. I think with the opportunity for advancement, one of the things that we talked about in our office this afternoon was when we post things that we put a notice with them that if you are an internal applicant, please know that if you are selected for the position, these will be the steps we have to follow so that it's right out there up front so people know. So I'm hoping that those will help us to still allow and support folks in advancement, but will also support our principals and their needs for their students.
Okay, so it sounds like we had an unwritten practice that we followed, but now we're trying to solidify that so that it's clear for everyone involved in the process. Because we have new people, obviously, in this specific situation that we're involved, new principals and different principals who have moved and that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, I think that answers all my questions. I think this is a great learning opportunity. And I think, as I said, it will improve the clarity for everyone involved. So hopefully we can give parents more assurances if and when this sort of thing comes up again, because we're only getting bigger as a district and there will be more opportunities for people to move up within, hopefully, in the future.
Thank you. And I would also just share that Mrs. Benjamin and I this afternoon also reached out on a personal basis to parents to communicate. And then Mr. Nuanez was nice enough to help us in preparing a communication to our families so that they would know that we had heard them and that we had taken appropriate steps.
Thank you for that information. I appreciate you guys listening when people came to you about this and finding hopefully a plan that will work better for everyone involved, but most importantly, our students. So with that, if somebody wants to make a motion, we have to minus the transfer.
I move to approve certified personnel employment position change with new contract with salary exception as presented with the removal of the transfer. Is that adequate?
Sounds good to me. I'll second that.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. I hope that all the families that are watching right now can breathe a little easier tonight. Next, we are going to move on to our action items. The first item is going to be the superintendent goals for 24-25, and this is going to be presented by Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. This particular agenda item is something that we certainly need to do annually, but one that I received feedback during our study session in the summer and wanted to bring back to the board. We have 5 goals on that attachment there that I'd just like to highlight real quick for our board and our community. Talk a little bit about some indicators that we may use during the mid-year and final evaluation, which is part of our discussion item. And then certainly, of course, answer any questions you may have around how the percentages were developed for my corresponding performance pay, or if there are any other questions as well. But the 5 goals that I'm asking for the board to consider approving tonight are around number 1, measured student achievement. And of course, student performance is key, just one of the metrics that we are held accountable for. And as you saw tonight, something we want to continue to celebrate. Goal number 2 was around the transformation of L. Thomas Heck, a building that we're currently using to support students from that community as well as School 17. But at some point in time, we hope to bring children back, those that may not even be in attendance here at Litchfield Elementary School District, but to come back. So I need to devise a plan with obviously stakeholder input, develop a timeline, consider resources, and ultimately by the end of this year, have a plan in place that we can discuss with our governing board. Goal 3 is to create a cascading evaluation for staff to include a revised career development criteria. And this is a big one. This is one I know our governing board has talked about in the past, and something we as a team recognize need some additional love and support. This would not be done by myself. Please note that this is done in partnership with all departments, and certainly grabbing insight from our staff, administrators, our classified team, our certified team, our career development committee, our superintendent's advisement committee, and then ultimately doing some hard critical work around systems that currently exist, and looking at some things that particularly maybe even research-based. The intent of this goal is to have a system evaluation that aligns really top down, but that makes sense, and that ultimately leads to greater student achievements that will tie in to goal number 1. Goal number 4 is a communication pathway that demonstrates that we're about continuous improvement, and that ties to our strategic plan. So this goal is one that we certainly would work in partnership with numerous departments, but one that allows our stakeholders, our partners, our families to see what's important to us. What metrics are we collecting in connection to our strategic plan, and that it's regularly updated so people could see how we're performing across the district in our key strategic areas. And lastly, goal number 5, which is also a very big one. And we've talked about this even last year, but certainly as we rolled into the new year, create and sustain a successful transportation department. And so you might be wondering, well, what does success mean? What does that look like? So in collaboration with our Executive Director of Operations, Mr. Stone there, and our Director of Transportation, Ms. Tassin, there's a series of pieces of data that I know they're already using to determine whether or not they're having success and whether or not they're making gains in their department, such as the retention of staff. How many new staff members are they hiring versus those that are leaving us? Number of accidents and what type of accidents. The term accidents itself tells you that it's not meant to happen, but sometimes there's things that are in our control and sometimes there's things that aren't. So we would certainly document that. Are we canceling our routes? Are we blending our routes? Are we combining our routes? Perhaps how often are we using our Alva Fria team to support us? Are our routes on time or late? And of course, a thing called attendance. Do our drivers and our staff come to work on a regular basis to support routes? And I know those are all things that Ms. Tassin and the team are working through, but I'm excited. These are all very important things for me, and hopefully I know these are as well for you, just based on your feedback. So I will stand for any questions you have, and certainly we have the team here that can speak to some of these items as well if we have any additional need for conversation. Thank you.
I'll start with you, Ms. Moran. Did you have any questions or comments?
You know I do. Okay, so my first question is about the top portion. So everything that's in there is database based on, hard numbers, if you will. And then on the top of the second page, it says scoring student success more than 16 points. Goal is scored as fully met. Tell me about that, because if it's 16 out of 60, I don't know that I agree with that.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. And certainly we're here for conversation.
Okay.
The idea behind that was when you look at that scoring guide for that particular goal, and after a conversation with Mr. Owen this summer, that if we had movement of 1.5%, that was significant and from his research base. And so if that were the case, that would correspond to 1 point accordingly. And then, of course, the piece for district letter grade is where I got to the 16. Certainly, again, I'm open for conversation, but that's how I got to that point.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what does everybody else think? I don't have a number that I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I'm just thinking that I understand that a 60 would be like blown out of the water, obviously, and not very realistic. But what does everybody else think?
We had talked about at our retreat day that growing at 1.5% to 2% in each category would be phenomenal. And that, according to this chart, would still only present the 16 points. So I think moving beyond that would, again, be amazing and what we obviously hope for, but probably not super obtainable on a year-to-year basis. Maybe over the course of the next 5 years, but in one single year, I think the 16 points by growing in all categories would be worth rewarding.
But it isn't actually growing, because if you look at the 1 point categories, it's plus or minus 1.5. So it could be actually, you're not decreasing by more than 1.5%, because that would be a 0 point, but it could be flat. And we would say goal met. Is that what we want to be saying?
I guess the question there is, do we feel like our scores are currently good? Because if they're currently good, then maintaining would be okay.
I think there's always room for growth. So whether I think a lot of people would argue that our scores are not where we want them to be. So I don't think it's fair to say that just no growth would still be considered good, at least from my perspective. I don't think. I think there's two things. If we're in agreement that the 1.5 to 2 is obtainable, which I think that is what we talked about at the retreat, then it seems like maybe, or in that is what we should be shooting for, then maybe this just needs to be reconfigured, that the 4 points is 2% or 2.5% or whatever it is. The 3 point is 2. You know what I'm saying? So we're just reducing that. If we don't think 3.5 or 4% is ever attainable, then all we're doing is we're just recreating the math down here to say that 16 is fully met. When if we just adjusted it above, it would say that, 50 points or whatever it is fully met, because we're saying the same thing. We're just doing the math differently at the bottom. I think, does that make sense?
I think it's a perception thing, right? Like when you look at this and you're like, you only got ones and it goes up to 4, but yet we're saying that's like totally like, that's great. Woohoo, we're happy with that. But we are happy with that. It's just that it doesn't look like it in this. So I think I would rather see it where it looks like we're knocking our goal out the park of what our realistic goal is versus having all these things way above what we actually think we're going to get to.
I agree with that. I think it would look nice to be attainable, that the 4 points is still where we could get to.
Well, because the other thing that could happen with this scoring, and I know we talked about this before, so forgive me for now looking at this with a different lens, but we could have, let's say our math is, the new curriculum and all of that, that's not as new as it once was. Let's say it kicks in and it's just fantastic. We could have amazing math scores, and then we would say, yeah, we fully met our goal. Even if the ELA went down, it just, with the 4 points at the highest goal, not that we wouldn't be happy about that. Of course we would, but then overall we'd be saying, yeah, we met our goal, when in fact, maybe we only met our goal in one area. I don't know.
Mr. Owens, did you have a comment about this? Did you have other questions, Kim?
Not on that section, no. So did we decide something or on that?
I think at least 3 of us commented that we would like it to be able to be achievable if we just change the chart to be able to be fully met. Is that correct?
That's what I'd like to, that's what I think I'd like to see, yes.
We would like you to get all 4 points. So we would like to change the graph so that 4 points are possible and we aren't shooting for 1 point.
Ms. Wallace, I clearly understand that. And the other thing, governing board, that, maybe we need to talk about tonight, and that's fine. The goal is written as maintain or increase. And I guess that maybe is a question we didn't vet fully in our study session around is maintaining acceptable. I have no doubt about it. When we work with our staff on goals, we talk about, just your kind of realistic goals. And then we talk about stretch goals. Do you need me to consider this goal number 1 in that manner and consider what does it mean to maintain? And is there corresponding performance pay for maintenance? And then what happens if we completely, to Ms. Moran's point, blow it out of the water? I'm willing to have, I certainly can bring back an alternative for us to talk about if the board so chooses. But right now it is written in a manner that score 1 would be good enough, right? It would be sufficient to meet that subsection of my performance pay.
So I'm going to give my opinion, and then I hope everybody else will share too. I would like to see maintain maybe be the 1, and the 0 is if we drop, right? You don't get anything. And 1 would be if we maintain, and then from the maintain up to that 1.5 to figure that out on that 2, 3, 4. But I'm open to what other people think. Ms. Moran, what do you think about?
Well, I mean, that's what this is. I mean, if maintaining, which is plus or minus 1.5 on most of these, or 1, depending, or 2, depending on the measurement that you're looking at, that is the maintain. That's 1 right now.
Well,
So,
but then we would be adjusting so that 16 would not be you fully met the goal
Yeah.
anymore because we're changing the other numbers.
well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the easier way to do this is adjust the 16, not adjust all the charts up above. But that would just be the way that I would do it, because I think that's simpler, but,
Well, how can you adjust the 16 when, again, if it's written that it's maintain or increase, then 16 has to be met. Because if he got a point in each one of those, he's maintaining, so it has to be 16.
Agreed.
Unless we change that verbiage, right, to his point.
Yeah.
It has to be to increase, whatever. I agree that 0 should be below, obviously, right? If we're falling down, we're not getting any points from what we expected. Maintaining absolutely is fine as 1 point. I think, or the 1 point is within that 1.5. I am all for stretch goals, but I guess I see it differently. I don't think you're actually being rewarded for earning 4 points, because you're going to be getting the exact same if you got 16 points or if you got 60 points. If 16 is fully met, then 16 and 60 are the same in my mind, right? If we're saying it's fully met, then that's the same. So you're actually not being rewarded for actually doing anything other than maintaining. And so that's not giving you the opportunity to do that. So I think there's a compromise somewhere here, maybe, which is keep the 0 and 1 point as they are and adjust the 2, 3, and 4 points to be more in line with, I guess what I'm hearing here is we're considering a stretch goal. It sounds like we're saying 4% is a lot, right? In 1 year. I agree. I don't think that makes sense. So could we just adjust the 2, 3, and 4, which was then slightly adjust the 16 at the bottom? So it would make sense to have maintain, but there is a stretch goal. It's just smaller than the one that's here. And therefore we would say we expect X number of points based on what's here.
My only follow-up to that is one of the things that we've talked about is aligning things from the top down, bottom up, however you want to say that. So what do the goals of our teachers look like? You know, does maintaining get them, you know, the best possible, or does increasing get them more?
The small problem with that is every year you're going to have a new set of students. And so I'm a 3rd grade teacher and my students do really well. I shouldn't be penalized the next year for my students continuing to do really well because they didn't grow. So again, depending on what that score is and what we're happy with, maintaining is okay and amazing if that level of maintaining is still in an area that we are happy in.
Well, which is why I think we look at a growth coefficient usually when it comes to teachers and their evaluations. Which is the same thing we're doing here. I'm just trying to make sure we're in alignment where that we're asking Dr. Davidson to do the same thing and be held to the same standards that we're asking our teachers to be held to.
Ms. Miranda, thank you. And I will just give some additional insight. This student achievement perspective, this goal 1 that has the numerous categories and the metrics that we use for measuring our kids' performance. I guess it'd be the backside of page 1 that has grades 5 through K through 5 math benchmark and so forth. There's 4 areas there. Those 4 areas are very similar to the way in which our principals and teachers are measured for their performance pay. And so I'm confident that there is an alignment. It's a little bit different being the superintendent, but certainly there is some alignment to that growth coefficient and the work that we want to see our staff do with kids from point A to point B, not just that proficiency piece that we see on page 1. So I do think we are in alignment, I guess, bottom line.
Okay, great. Yeah, so however, you know, as a board, if we want to shift that, I want to make sure that number 1, we're in alignment. Number 2, that we are being fair about what does, and that we agree as a board, what warrants performance pay. And that's where I don't know that we, I guess, fully discuss this at that point in time. I know we did discuss all of the goals, so I would like to touch briefly on each of the other goals that are not as clearly defined from a measurement standpoint. One of the reasons that we selected the Thomas Heck Elementary School magnet school to be a goal was because this is really the future of our district. And we know that it's important for students potentially all across our district and getting students back who have left us in the past. So there's a lot to be determined there, and we want to make sure that we're making good choices around that. The evaluation, as you mentioned, is something that we've been asking for years. Again, this is going to be aligning top down and bottom up to make sure that it is clear and concise as much as we can make it for that. And then the dashboard communication's been huge with us as well, things that we've been asking for, and communicating about the strategic plan and how that all lines up is also super important. And we've been a broken record up here about transportation. And I know that the transportation department has been through a lot in the last couple of years. We have a good, I think, pathway right now. We keep hitting some bumps in the road, no pun intended, but I do believe that we are on the road to getting back in line with where we want to be with transportation. So I'm excited to see where all of those measures, as you mentioned earlier, end up when it comes to meeting this goal.
Ms. Clymer, did you have questions or comments?
I mean, as it relates to the other goals, I don't have any questions when we went over this. I'm really comfortable with these goals. I think, to Ms. Moran's point, I am in agreement with these goals and think they're important and we chose them for a reason. I think the next step obviously is to identify what those key performance indicators are, which you just mentioned with us for transportation. I think you already have them here. They're not listed on this document, but it sounds like that's already, just to make it, again, be really fair and black and white in terms of this is what we set out to do. This is how we're going to measure that success. So again, I think that's already happening, but that's really my only comment on the rest of those goals is just to make sure that that also gets written down on this document just to make sure we're in alignment when it comes time to do the evaluation.
Ms. Clymer, if I could interject, when we get to the discussion item around the evaluation tool, I'll kind of show my thoughts on connecting this document to that conversation, then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds
you.
good. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, did you have comments or questions?
No questions. My comments. I mean, we talked about this extensively at our board retreat about the individual goals, about the percentages, how those are attained, how they're measured. So one of the things that we talked about when we first brought up, your performance pay and review and all that stuff and how to measure it was, asking you if you felt these were fair and obtainable, in that obtaining them meant that you performed your job and we saw improvement within the district. And so if you feel that based on what we know or what I see as the 5 goals and the scores, then I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
Ms. Wallace?
I think the goals are big and are going to do amazing things for our district. So I agree with Mr. Owens. If you feel that you can tackle all of this year, then I am excited for everything that's going to come.
Ms. Wallace, and I'd like to just add, I appreciate you all because you're looking at me as your superintendent, but see these people to the left of me? I have to give them credit because they're going to be a big part of the accomplishment of every single one of those. So thank you.
Okay. Obviously we feel pretty good about these goals because we talked about them at the board retreat and I'm happy with them. Just a side note, I have had a bus show up 2 days in a row on time picking my kids. So I am already as a parent seeing some progress in that area. So just wanted to say shout out to them for that. But I do think we need to kind of come in agreement about the top part with the numbers or whatever for the growth for our kids on the test scores, because for me, it's hard for me to say that we got like a 1 out of a 0 to 4 scale. And that means like you did amazing. So you get all the things, even though I know that logically that's what it means, but on paper, it doesn't look that way. And I know that our teacher evaluations and many of our evaluations we've seen, there is generally like a much lower number to that huge number they could have, and they get their full extra pay. So I guess this probably is similar to that. I still am having a hard time wrapping my head around that. I'd rather us see the 4 points be something that is going to take some work, but be reachable versus setting up what looks like for failure, even though that's not what we're doing. So if everybody's good with it the way it is, I'll just deal with it. But if anybody thinks we should change it.
Could I make just one last suggestion? I think the part we're getting stuck on is looking at 16 out of 60, right? Because we don't disagree with the stats above. I think we've all, been exhaustively talking about this over the last 2 times we've been together. So I think we're all in agreement here. I think what we agree that maintaining an increase of what that means, we look at these and we think, there are stretch goals here. Is it possible that we could consider, excuse me, just removing the 4 points altogether and having it be 3 points? So you have 0 point stays the same. And everything stays the same. 4 just goes off because again, there's no difference between 3 and 4. So we can adjust 3 to be whatever we want it to be, I guess. But I'm just saying let's even the scale to what we're actually asking him to do, right? If we can't say 16 out of 60 in any right situation does not feel like that's a good score, but the data is what really matters. And so if we need to adjust that point system, let's do that. If we agree with the way that is, if we agree with the data at the top, then it's just the point system that we don't agree with. And if we think that the 2.5 and above is a stretch goal, then we don't need the 4 or make the 4 3 and split the difference between 3 and 4. And then again, still a stretch goal. And then that just changes our point structure so that it is more reflective of what we're trying to do in terms of performance numbers.
So that would put it at 16 out of 46 is okay? If we just left everything the
Look at
same.
Melissa
I'm
doing
just
the quick
checking.
math. Throw it in that.
I'm just making, like, I mean, I'll be okay if everyone is okay with it the way it is, then,
Well, okay, so the only other thing, because I'm a numbers person here, would be if you have a decrease of more than the 1.5 or, 1%, then should it be a negative? -1 point and the maintain is actually 0. But again, then we go back to the actual goal itself. If maintaining is success, then I think we leave it where it is.
Okay. I'm not in favor of negative points. I think everyone starts at 0. I don't think we should go backwards. So I'm not necessarily in favor of that, but I understand the sentiment and I agree with you either adjusting that. I don't like the negative part of it, but what I care about is the benchmarks above. And I think we're all in agreement to that. Melissa, I absolutely understand the 16 out of 60. That doesn't work the way that I want it to, but I'm okay with you adjusting that how you see fit, because I think we're all in agreement on what really matters. If you'd like to move the points or, adjust that, whatever, I'm absolutely fine with you doing that. I think as long as the benchmarks don't change and the goal itself, meaning to maintain or increase, that is what's important to me. If you and Dr. Davidson want to work out the total number of points, I don't mind that.
how about you, Ms. Wallace or Mr. Owens? Do you have thoughts about this point scale?
So what I'm hearing everyone say is, I think that the struggle over here is that there's not enough incentive or any incentive for growth. Correct? Because we're saying maintain is.
Oh, I don't have a problem with the maintain. I have a problem with the fact that, like, if our goal is maintain or increase and we feel like a good increase is that 1.52%, then that should be what we're striving for. Yes, I think it's good to have a stretch beyond that, but they said if we can do that in every category, that's amazing, right? So therefore, it looks like we have this higher expectation
So you
than we
just don't
really
like
have.
the numbers.
I said I can get on board. It's fine. If everybody's fine, I am fine. It is okay. If everybody's good with the 16 out of 60, we can just.
I think the number just, again, gives us a reference on how, if it was met or if it was far exceeded. But we're saying our bare minimum that we expect is maintain. Correct?
I think that's everybody. Yes.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Mr. Owens,
We don't like it, we can fix it next year.
that's a great point. So then if everybody's fine, then I'm fine and we could have a motion to approve.
I move to approve the superintendent goals and performance pay model for the 24-25 school year as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Sorry for that. roundabout conversation. Next, we're going to move on to approval of out-of-state travel requests this is for middle school people, and this is going to be presented by Dr. Ducey.
Good evening, Madam President and Governing Board, my fellow admin cabinet, and our community that's watching at home and here. I'm here with a request for the Governing Board to approve a National Association of Middle School Level Education Conference for our middle school principals. It's an organization that focuses on educating kids at the middle school level. It's nationally recognized for school districts at the national level that are having great results and schools to watch. The conference is an out-of-state travel conference for our middle school leaders, so that's why I'm here today to get your approval. It is best for kids because this national level opportunity will allow our middle school leaders to have quality professional development at the national level. As you know, middle school is not just a struggle for the Litchfield Elementary School District. Across the state, middle school level is struggling with maintaining their student achievement, behavior incidences, as well as recruitment and retention of highly qualified middle school staff. And, we really want to lean into our state partners to learn what's working best. But we also know that comparatively, Litchfield actually outperforms many of the state averages. So as far as leaning into our state partners, as much as that is helpful at times to brainstorm and collaborate with some of our high achieving middle school schools across the Arizona, at the national level, this would really allow us to tap into resources, partnerships, as well as that quality professional development to learn different techniques and strategies that have shown success in other states that have much better achievement at the middle school level, as well as retention and recruitment. So that's basically a summary of what's in the memo. I'll pause now to see if you have any specific questions about this request.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions or comments about this item?
I don't have any questions, but just one comment. 2 years ago, when you came on board, one of the important things, among all of the important things on your resume, was your middle school experience and bringing that to our district, because we had been highly focused on K-5 for a really long time, and we were really, really good at that. I think over the last couple of years, it's gotten even more difficult, as you mentioned, in the state of Arizona and probably across the country in terms of middle school. So while I know, it is an expense for the district and we are taking, these leaders away from their campus for a short period of time, I think the importance of having leaders that understand middle school and are able to support them, and then have the campus leaders really get that quality professional development is really, really important. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Thank you.
I'm also in support of our middle school principals and leaders getting higher quality continuing education and professional development, which it seems like this would be. My only caution is, in the past 4 months, this board has approved more out-of-state travel than I think we have in the many years that I've served on this board. So it does bring me pause anytime that whether it's campus leadership or district leadership will be away from your position. I know everyone checks their email all the time. Everyone's really on the clock, even when they're not physically here. But I just wonder, how many days are too many? Do we have a regulation, or should we have a regulation to say, yes, we support PD, but the maximum number of days you can request for out-of-state travel is this for a calendar year or a school year? That would be my only caution. Again, I think this is a great program. I like the free programs even better than the ones that we have to pay for, but in this case, it does seem like it's good quality and would be worth the investment of the funds. I don't necessarily expect an answer to that question on how many days are too many, but I think we need to continue the discussion, because the more requests that come, especially with people who are, repeatedly, month after month going out of state, it just brings me pause.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. We'll definitely research that and get back to you. I will share with you that when we do look at professional development opportunities, we, from the principalship level or our directors or our leaders, really looking at their performance as well as their scorecard goals and what they're trying to reach and finding out, is this an action step that would match and be aligned to accomplishing the goals that they set out for their school sites or their departments. So definitely that is a consideration. We don't decide on professional development lightly because we want to be good stewards of taxpayer funds. This funding actually comes specifically from a funding just for professional development. And so I do believe that this is quality professional development that will help propel our leaders, which is why I'm bringing it to you today to recommend approval. So.
Ms. Wallace?
I can just say that as a former teacher, after 4 years of my bachelor's degree and 2 years of my master's degree, the best experience and education I got were at professional developments that I attended. I think, and very specifically, I was a kindergarten teacher at one point, and I attended a kindergarten specific conference in Las Vegas, and it was the best conference. I still remember things I learned from that today because it was targeted for exactly what I was working on. So I think quality conferences that especially are targeted to specific areas are invaluable to, or just that's not the right word there. It is so valuable, and there isn't a price that I can put on the amount of education and experience that I received at those. So especially when I researched this one, I looked at this one when it came through, and this does look like a great conference. And with middle school being such a important time and it being such a challenge, I think that it's very important, and I highly support the conference.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, Las Vegas, Nashville. I want to go to these things too. No, I'm fully in support.
Thank you.
So my only comment is that Arizona tends to get a bad rap for kids not doing well and performing not as well as the rest of the country. And our schools are doing pretty well compared to other schools in the state, but they're not where we want them to be, even when they're performing better than most schools in the state of Arizona. So in order for us to do better, we are going to have to look outside of Arizona and push ourselves to be better than people that are outside of Arizona who are doing better than us right now, and look up to them and see what are they doing? How are they getting the growth that we want to see in our schools? So I think this is a great opportunity, especially with everything that is middle school. And I've told you multiple times, middle school is not my favorite, but God bless everyone that does it. And I think this is a great opportunity for those principals because they just don't see a lot of opportunities for them to specifically get this kind of training. So I am fully in support, and I'm very excited to see what they learn from peers nationally and that they can bring back to Litchfield.
Thank you.
If someone would like to make a motion.
I can do it. I move to approve the out-of-state travel request for the individuals mentioned and middle school principals to attend AMLE 24 in Nashville, Tennessee, November 6th through the 9th, 2024, as presented.
I second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second for Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer? Yay. Ms. Moran? Yay. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Have a great time in Nashville in November. We are going to move on to the next item, which is out-of-state travel request for our Director of School Safety. This will also be by Dr. Ducey.
Good evening, Madam President and governing board members. So this is another opportunity to further develop the capacity of our directors, specifically our new Director of School Safety, Moss, and allow him the opportunity to go and be trained as a CEPTED qualified evaluator. We had a group go this summer and get evaluation, but he would be adding to our team so that we are able to implement CEPTED and do those evaluations across our district. So I'll open up to any questions you might have about this training opportunity.
Ms. Moran?
No questions.
Ms. Wallace,
No questions.
Mr. Owens,
None from me, thanks.
Ms. Clymer.
No questions. I think we talked about this at length during our last round when the other group came before, so I feel like I'm good. Thanks.
I have no questions either. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve out-of-state travel request for Thomas Foster de Oro, Director of School Safety, to attend the CEPTED training in San Diego, October 6th through 11th.
I second.
Having a motion for Ms. Clymer and a second for Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. San Diego is my favorite. It is where my son is.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to approval of request for proposal process for the district's employee benefits package for the 25-26 plan year. This is going to be by CFO Vaughn and Executive Director. I don't have her last name. I'm sorry. Satterfield, our HR, sorry.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me this evening to discuss the plan to release a request for proposal to explore employee benefit options. This is a significant step in our planned budgeting process for the 2025-2026 school year. Litchfield Elementary School District has been with ASBATE, or the Arizona School Board Association Insurance Trust, since the trust's inception in 1981 for our employees' medical insurance coverage. This process is designed to ensure value for our employees, to go to market and give us data to compare our current coverage with other coverage available to the district, both in terms of cost to our employees and the insurance provided. It does not guarantee a change in our benefits. It simply is allowing us to ensure we are providing the best benefits we can to our employees. Beyond medical insurance, it is our intention to also review dental, vision, life insurance coverage, and accidental death and disability insurance. In the agenda item, we've included an approximate timeline for this work. An important item to note is that we intend to bring the benefits package for board approval prior to the release of contracts so that our employees are aware of our benefits package while reviewing their offer for next year. Also included in the timeline are 2 board updates, one after responses from potential providers are received, and one after our committee has scored the responses to preview the results prior to bringing it back for approval. At this time, Executive Director Satterfield, Director Garrett, and I are all available to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions about this item?
I do not have any questions. I think it's always good to evaluate to make sure we have the best that we can.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I agree. This is what we asked for. So this is what we're hoping to, that allows us to be kind of unburdened by some of the strongholds of the ASBA that we've been experiencing over the last several years. And ideally, the end outcome is the best healthcare medical policies for our staff. And I really like the idea of having them prior to contracts, just so that way they fully know what they're getting into when they sign those contracts. And hopefully it's better than what we have currently.
Ms. Clymer?
No questions, just a comment. I know it seems like a long time away between now and March of next year, but I also know the bandwidth to undertake something like completely overhauling your benefits plan internally. So I wish you well. And also just thank you for investigating this. I know as a board, we have struggled mightily over the last 4-5 years as we've seen these costs continually increase and have had very little options of how to help cover that for our employees. I know we've had to push some of those costs onto them, but if we could mitigate that in any way, if this could be helpful, I'm all in for that for sure.
Ms. Moran?
I agree. I mean, we have been asked by teachers to brainstorm ways to pay them more. And unfortunately, we don't control the funding that we get, but we can help to control what we do with that funding. And so shopping around for insurance and benefits is a great way to do that. We may come back and say, you know what, Asbate is the best deal going, but we may not. So my only question is, we're going to do the RFP process, do this shop around. How often would this need to be done, do you anticipate going forward?
So different districts do take different approaches to it, and we're actually utilizing the services of a consultant that specializes in this type of work to help us with this, because you can imagine the type of data analysis that will be involved in trying to determine the best fit for Litchfield, because not only are we looking at plans that are similar to Asbate in terms of it being a fully insured product, we're also looking at, does becoming self-insured make sense? And so we're likely to, in that first board update where we tell you about the responses we've received, we're highly likely to receive many, many responses, and they're highly likely to look very, very different from each other. The reason Litchfield has managed to stay with Asbate for so long is the insurance trusts like Asbate, Valley Schools, Kairos, or just to name a few that specialize with school districts, are actually exempt from procurement rules. And so if you go with one of them, you can stay with them effectively indefinitely. If we end up with one of them, whether it be continuing with Asbate or another one that I mentioned, we could, go another 20 years. I wouldn't recommend it. As we've chatted with the consultant about best practices, we've been warned not to do what they see some districts do, which is shop every year, because it tends to wear down the market. And by that, I mean insurance companies are less likely to actually respond to your solicitation because they don't want to get into that type of relationship. I think what's probably a better middle ground is every 5 years, and that would actually be what's required if we end up on a platform that's not exempt from procurement, not being one of those trusts. And so regardless of if you're going to one of the trusts or not, I think that 5-year benchmark is probably a good compromise between letting the insurance companies know that you're willing to build a partnership with them, and also shopping it around frequently enough that you're not being taken advantage of, if that makes sense.
Great. And I think the other thing to consider there is anytime that you change insurance companies or carriers, you may have to change providers. And as an employee, I would hate to think I might have to change providers every year. So that would be a huge inconvenience.
It'd be very disruptive. Yes.
Yes. Just for clarification purposes, when you say that we are hoping to have information for the contracts, we're going to know who the provider will be and what the cost will be.
Yes.
Okay.
So very similar to every year when the governing board approves our benefits package. I'm hoping it will look exactly like that. You'll see I have it on there for March 4th. I'm hoping that becomes a governing board meeting. When I looked at the calendar, it looked like that had the potential to be a governing board meeting. And that's when we're also hoping to bring raises and things of that nature. And so we're hoping it looks exactly alike to prior years. You might be thinking, well, that feels late compared to when we've historically issued contracts, but you might recall that there's been a legal change about when we're able to issue contracts. And so to a certain extent, we're benefiting from that a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I think this is great. My husband's work changes insurance every 2 years. So that's basically their timeline. Every 2 years, they're looking around. I think 5 sounds better because we are the people who have to change our doctors, I feel like, every 2 years. So I think this is a good plan and I'm excited to see it. what it will be able to save us, hopefully. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the issuance and release of multi-term solicitation for employee benefits as presented.
I second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on now to discussion items, which is the next item will be the superintendent evaluation tool. This will be by Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Zinema, members of the board and team members. This is a discussion item because the evaluation tool is an exhibit according in connection with our policy CBI evaluation of the superintendent. The exhibit was transformed based on conversation again that we had at our retreat in June. And what I did for our governing board is really try to combine some efforts and can combine some, I guess, performance indicators, just to kind of shorten it a little bit across those three standards, which in our conversation before were around just the role of the superintendent and the relationships that are established, whether that's with a variety of stakeholders, our governing board, et cetera. And then put in part two, the goals that we just discussed in the agenda item that were connected to our strategic plan. So I listed those in there. What we changed, I also kept highlighted for our governing board to take a look at from some timelines in regards to a midterm and final evaluation. And I also wanted to make certain that the governing board had freedom to discuss, to have conversations, to even kind of give the opportunity for the board to rate my performance on a global scale, not just in the way in which we described through the performance pay item that was approved earlier this evening. So just some minor changes, not a lot of changes, but trying to use that word again, align the conversation that we had in June to a tool that just was easy to use and made sense. And again, gave the board freedom to have conversation, not just from a quantitative perspective, but from a qualitative perspective. So with that said, President Zinema, I'll be here for any questions.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions about this item?
I do not have any questions. I like the things that were removed and added. I think that it's a good comprehensive evaluation of what we're trying to achieve.
Mr. Owens,
I agree. No questions.
Ms. Clymer.
I know this evaluation tool is a little wonky, a little bit, but I agree with Ms. Wallace. I mean, I think the changes are appropriate. We talked about them during the board retreat. And I will just echo what you said in terms of, I think student achievement and the goals that you have presented earlier are extremely important. And that is what you are working towards every single day. I think that the standards of leadership and professionalism and, you know, how you represent this district is equally as important. So being a little wonky, at least this gives the board an opportunity for feedback to both you and, you know, the people around you to say, this is what's really important to us. And this is how we, you know, feel like you're doing in these areas, because it's hard to put these things on a chart with numbers and things like that. So I think this does a good job. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
Yeah, I agree with Board Member Clymer that it does go beyond just the performance pay. This is an opportunity for us to give you feedback on things that we are happy with and things that we might not be happy with. So this is really a prioritization of things that we want to see coming from you. And this is our opportunity to formalize that process. Although I think I and hopefully other board members give you informal feedback on a regular basis. I do have a couple of things, suggestions. My first suggestion would be in standard one leadership under 1.1.3. I feel like there's actually two things that we're putting in this one area. We're saying advocate, nurture, and sustain an instructional program conducive to learning, which is one thing. And then we're saying we want a district culture that includes consensus building, collaboration, and conflict resolution. I would like to see the first part, or at least the part that says instructional program conducive to learning, enveloped into 1.1.4, which talks about instruction programs. I think that having the district culture that includes consensus building, collaboration, and conflict resolution might be part of that, but I think I would like to be able to comment as a board member on the district culture. And part of that we've seen in the past has to do with, are people, is your door open for people to approach you? Do they feel comfortable with that? Do they feel like there would be any retribution if that were to happen? I think that's really important for us to attract and retain quality employees. And I feel like the other piece, the instructional programs, really should be separate from that. So I don't have an exact suggestion for the verbiage on that, but does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, for sure.
And then the only other, again, this is kind of wordsmithing, but I just want to make sure that we're clear about this. On 1.2.4, which is under the governing board relationship, we're saying takes prompt action to implement all directives to the board. And I just want to clarify if that should be all directives of the board or to the board. Is this you communicating to us, or is this you taking action on what we are directing you to do?
Thank you, Ms. Moran. On that, I simply would say that's probably a clerical error on my behalf. I would also have the word of there instead of to.
Okay, great. That is all the feedback that I have. I think this is going to be a good tool. It's challenging because I feel like on one hand, it should be more complicated,
Right.
But yet having done this many times, I feel like we kind of go into it knowing that we think you're doing a great job or you're not. So, but it's good to have all of these different more granular performance indicators so that we can give specific feedback if there is anything that we want you to improve upon.
Did you get a chance to speak? I literally lost track. Okay, so sorry, it's been a long day, everyone. But no, I think this is great. I'm glad that we kept things in here. I know we had talked about making it less and shortening it, possibly combining things, and I don't think that's necessary. If you get amazing marks on all these things, that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. And I think it's good for us to have these points to talk to these things directly when we are communicating with you and talking about how the year's going. And what I think Kim meant to say is we all think you're doing fantastic right now. But so yeah.
Can I add one more thing? So just from like a logistical standpoint, so how is this going to look? And this might be a question for you, President Zeidema. We have a copy of the evaluation, but will Dr. Davidson submit evidence for this and then you will provide that to us? And tell me more about what that process should look like or what we think it's going to look like. Since this is the first official review that we're doing with Dr. Davidson.
My vision of how that's going to look is that Dr. Davidson is going to get all of his data together to prove that he's doing these things, as well as the stuff on his goals that he has that we approved earlier, and that Ms. Contra will put that all together and send it out to the board, and that there will be an evaluation tool. We have one, right, in Excel that everybody can fill out. And then if they send those, I can send that part out to everyone so they can send them back to me and I can have them put together, compile a average score or whatever for our meeting in December. And then we'll discuss it in December. For me, I feel like December is just like a progress report. And so everybody will kind of put their scores in. We can talk with Dr. Davidson about where we think he's at, where we think, you're doing really great on this. Here's some areas that we think maybe could be improved before the end of the year, so that at the end of the year, we can have this amazing glowing report card that will be there. That's what I'm seeing right now. But tell me if I missed something, because this is the first time I've actually had to do a review as the board president, because we didn't do that last year.
Yeah, well, I know one of the things that we discussed in the past was having the superintendent maybe do a self-evaluation, and we haven't done that before, but I don't know if that's something we can or should do, or maybe we do that in year 2. I'm not sure.
I am a big fan of that. We hadn't discussed that part yet, but I am a fan of doing that because I think that that's helpful to see if we are on the same page or where we might not be on the same page, and how do we get there. But what does everybody else think about the self-evaluation part? Ms. Wallace?
I think a self-evaluation is good. I think it's good to compare what the person, how they feel they're doing versus how maybe the same. We may agree, we may not. And I also like having the data and information to support those things that we can look at ahead of time to make a more educated conversation.
Mr. Owens,
Yes.
Ms. Clymer.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I think if that all just comes over together, I mean, he can fill that out at his own discretion and then just combine that with the data he's presenting for the other goals in terms of whether he's met them or not.
Are you good with
Yes.
that, Dr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am. And for me, it's really just about evidence and artifacts, right? So
Yeah.
I'll certainly make certain you are informed to help you with your decision making, but also I will bring hopefully an accurate reflection of from my perspective as well.
Can we just review the actual policy to see if there's anything we need to update if we're going to require a self-evaluation or if that's more of an unwritten thing? I just want to make sure that we're in compliance with and doing what we're saying that we need to do, but not doing anything that we're not allowed to do or request.
I will look into that. I will work with Ms. Contra and make sure to have that for you guys soon. So I'll work with her on that and have that for you guys the next time we are talking about this. Because also I'm hoping that in the future, in some future meetings, maybe we will get, before we're doing the evaluation, what the KPIs will be for some of the stuff anyways, so that we have that information before we're actually evaluating. We know what you want to use as your data points. So if that also will work for you. And then I'll also work with Ms. Contra on when we want to make sure everybody gets the information so that we make sure everybody has enough time to go through it and dedicate the time to it that they want to for giving him a good evaluation. Anybody else have any questions or comments? No.
Ms. Item, as we close this, please note, just because again, it's an exhibit, I'll take the feedback that was given, tighten it up and make sure and then a Friday report, we present it to the board. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on now. I'm just going to slowly talk while he goes to sit down since he's our next speaker again, to our reports. The first one is going to be from Superintendent Davidson.
All right, I'm back. Thank you. On behalf of, my role as superintendent, just wanted to start off by saying how proud I am of our staff and students. And Ms. Item, you spoke to at the beginning of the meeting, some words that come to mind about what our team and our kids are going, being resilient, overcoming adversities, different tragedies and situations that are occurring across the district with kids and adults. Just really excelling. You saw some students today that we celebrated. That's fantastic. And just working hard. One of the things that I've been trying to do over this last month or so is trying to connect with all sorts of different employee groups. And so over this last month, I've had a chance to spend time in transportation, traveling around in a school bus alongside a couple of drivers just to experience what they do on a daily basis. Today, I had a chance to shadow a couple of our techs out in schools and just watch the process they go through to meet the needs of the staff at the school, how they handle the tickets. Had a chance to attend the staff meeting today with the technology department. And there's some great stuff happening, just some wonderful things happening. So I appreciate their work, in particular, those two departments, our classified team. From a performance perspective, and you'll see this in an upcoming Friday report, I have asked our free over the last couple of years to provide us student achievement data on how our Litchfield kids do when they leave us in comparison to other students who are not from the Litchfield Elementary School District. And just wanted to highlight that in just these 4 indicators year over year, this data set, these students, their graduation rate went higher compared to the student group from last year. Their attendance rates went higher. The rate in which our students are completing AP exams and their passing rate went up, as well as our ACT composite scores went up. So, on behalf of building that Litchfield learner, we're definitely maintaining and increasing. And I think the work we're doing will just keep kicking that up a notch. So I'm really excited about that. And you'll see that in the upcoming Friday report. Just wanted to thank many of you for attending that ASBA Law Conference. For those of you that had the time to attend, I thank you for that. It was just a nice opportunity to learn together and to hear how the new legislation will impact all of us in our roles. So thank you for being a part of that. On behalf of this team here, pretty soon we're going to be starting our apple pie tours. So for those listening out there, be ready. It's not just Apple again, so we're excited to get out, see our teachers, give them some feedback on what we're seeing in the classroom, and then just we just love the chance to connect with our staff. So we're excited about that. On a more somber note, and you saw the communication that went out on behalf of the school shooting in Georgia. I want to just from I guess you could call it a silver lining, that school was able to their staff, police, first responders were able to intervene quickly on behalf of the Centegix product. That is also the product, if you recall, last year our board approved. So we're moving through that implementation process. We're getting there. Our badges are getting ready to get in our staff members' hands. And so I'm just really excited to get that up and moving in our school district. And lastly, this coming Saturday, 8:30 a.m., when the doors will open for our strategic plan conversation with a variety of community members and stakeholders. We'll be meeting here at Litchfield Elementary. And we have close to 50 that have RSVP'd. We're excited to take them through the different quadrants of our strategic plan, our keystones, talk about the barriers that exist right now. And our goal is for when they leave, for them to commit on how they will help us unlock the potential and the future of our students. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. We are going to move on to reports from our governing board members, and I'll start with Ms. Clymer.
Sure. Thank you. Just a couple of highlights. I feel like it's been an extremely busy month, and yet when I went back to look at my calendar of all the things I've done for school board, there weren't that many. So I don't know how that happened, how I've gotten really busy and don't have much to show for it, quite clearly. Three things I want to highlight. Number one, because it's not public facing, I just want to, let everybody know that Dr. Davidson, as busy as he is and running the entire district, still makes time to meet with board members individually. I meet on a biweekly basis. I know everyone sort of has their own cadence. It's hard to find time between my professional schedule, his professional schedule, and yet we make it work just so that we can connect and align and understand, the issues of the day. So thank you for that time. And just know that you may only see us up here every 2 weeks, talking, but know that, we are doing work behind the scenes to try to stay up to date as much as we can and communicate with the administration. Dr. Davidson mentioned the law conference I was able to attend last week. This is just a really important opportunity. There's so many laws that are changing constantly, and this gives us a better understanding of recent changes to those laws, and then again, how it directly impacts our policy for the district. Again, one of our most important jobs up here is creating those policies and making sure that the administration is adhering to those. So really understanding how things are changing constantly is really important. So thank you for the opportunity for collaboration between the district administrators and us, and kind of being on the clock together where we can actually talk and work together, which is great. The last thing very quickly is congratulations on some really hard IT and technology hires. I know we have been, searching and searching and searching for that right fit, and it seems like we found them. So I know it's difficult to hire professions that are outside of education to work in school districts. So thank you for sticking with it. I know the IT department is really thankful, but so are we, because I know that was holding us back from doing some of the things that we really wanted to do for our staff and students. So congratulations.
Ms. Moran.
Yes, I agree with Board Member Clymer. It was a busy month, but I agree. I did not have as many things on my calendar as I thought I would when I went back to look and review. But I was able to attend our special meeting. We generally now have 2 meetings a month, but we only give reports at the primary meetings. I also had my usual meetings with Dr. Davidson, and I echo Board Member Clymer's comments about that as well. It's just a good way for us to keep in touch about different issues. I can bring things up, you can bring things up, and it just helps to keep us in line as far as that goes. I was also able to attend Thursday and Friday of the ASBA Law Conference, which was very demure, very mindful, but it was heavy on AI this year, which is a trending topic. And I found it informative, although I think the AI conversation applies from the school perspective more to the high school than it does to us at this point, although I'm sure there are some middle schoolers of ours that are applying AI and know more about it than the adults that are teaching our classes. But the most informative and insightful and practical session that I attended was about chronic absenteeism. And chronic absenteeism has been a problem across the country, but also in our district, really since COVID. It's changed some of the mindsets of parents and students. And so it was really great to see an applicable practice standpoint that and the suggestions that were made during that presentation. So I look forward to having additional discussions and action in our district around chronic absenteeism and to mitigate this growing issue that is negatively impacting student success. Showing up is vital, and we are excited to see our students every day. So from the perspective of our tried and true public school system, I think Richard Marx said it pretty well in the classic song, Right Here Waiting. If I see you next to never, then how can we say forever? Wherever you go, whatever you do, we will be right here waiting for you.
Ms. Wallace.
That is a good song. I also attended the ASBA Law Conference last week, which was great. I wasn't able to attend the whole conference, but the portion that I was at, I got a lot out of. And I was also going to mention that September, with the whole country being back in school, is Attendance Awareness Month. And while last year's numbers are moving in the right direction, we are still way beyond where we should be as a country and a state and a school for our chronic absenteeism. So I echo what Ms. Moran said, that we need to continue to move in the right direction of getting our numbers back down to our pre-COVID numbers and getting kids in seats. So for parents or students listening, we need you in the classroom.
Mr. Owens.
No report from me, thanks.
Okay, I will go. So we recently were informed that the County Board of Supervisors decided to cancel the Litchfield Elementary School District governing board election this year because they received 3 candidates that turned in enough qualifying signatures to make it on the ballot. And since we had 3 open positions, they decided it was not necessary for us to have an election, which saves us about $50,000. So that's an exciting thing for the district to save that money in our M&O budget. With that, that means that your board members that will be coming in will be Ms. Wallace, Scott Mikes, and myself will be on the board next year. We will be losing Danielle, which we will talk about in December because I'm not ready to handle that yet. But since that has come out, Mr. Mikes has reached out to me and is really excited to come onto this board. I know he's already meeting with people and admin to get to know people. And we met for coffee and talked about just some logistics of being a board member. We talked about possible training opportunities and just various things that are coming up, like we're dealing with policy stuff this year, just to kind of get him ready. He is excited to be here. And so I was excited to be able to meet with him and have that conversation. I also was able to attend the Trust Policy Governance Summit. Since we are moving to the trust for our policies next year, and we're doing this policy review, which you will see coming up in the next several meetings. It's nice that they're putting together something similar. It's not the ASBA Law Conference, but I think that they're trying to maybe eventually have something similar to that. It was a good event to go and kind of see their perspective on things that are happening with laws that came into place, as well as talking about policy and how those laws apply to our policies. I also attended the ASBA Law Conference. That is by far my most favorite training that we attend every year. I feel like I learn more there than any other professional development that they offer for board members. I hope that our whole board can figure out how to be there next year, just because I do think that it's the most educational one for board members and even our district staff, because there's always new laws coming into place and that always impacts what our policies are going to look like. And that's what we're here to do, is to determine policy as a governing board. So I'm glad that I got that opportunity to do that. I think it's important for board members to do professional development just as much as it is for our teachers and our staff. We are up here, we have been elected to do a job for this community, and we want to do it to the best of our ability. And the only way that we're able to do that is if we make sure we understand what that job is. And so I hope that everybody finds time to participate in various professional development moving forward. I wanted to also say that I will not be at our next board meeting. It's only second meeting I've ever missed in my entire time of 6 years now being on the governing board, but I'm a mom of a senior in high school this year, and she has a concert that she really wants to go to with mom. So I'm going to do that. And I asked Ms. Clymer if she would, as she's getting ready to leave us, lead the meeting one last time. So she agreed to do that.
You're asking me to dig real deep. It's been like 3 years since I held that gavel. So just get ready, everyone. It's going to be
It's
loud.
going to be great. So yeah, so just wanted to let everybody know I would not be here at that meeting. I'm sad, but I will be having a good time with my senior daughter, which is why our schedules feel so busy this month, Danielle. It's because we have senior kids that have taken a lot of things happening. And then finally, I just wanted to say thank you to all our teachers. Our teachers work hard all the time to pour into our kids and to encourage them to be their best selves. And I appreciate all that you do as a mom. I have had many kids that have gone through this district, and I still have 2 more here. But the fact that you always encourage my kids to be their best selves and to be the best possible versions of themselves that they can be, that you cultivate a love of learning, you encourage their creativity and imagination and all of that, and that you make sure learning is fun for them every day. I appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you to all of our teachers that pour into all of our students every single day. With that, we thank you to the administrators that sent in the reports. Please, community, read those reports that are listed on board docs. This is a great way to know what's going on in our district. They put a lot of fun pictures in there. So it's just fun to see what's happening in our schools and with all of our different departments. And with that, Mr. Owens.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Wallace, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes.